Hi, Jeanne. Welcome to the Women Waken podcast.
Hi, Whitney. I'm so excited. Our chat's going to be juicy.
I know. It's going to be amazing. And I'm kind of freaking out a little bit because I am quite a fan of yours.
Oh, thank you.
We met about a year ago through our business circle that we do, spiritual business coaching program. And you were generous enough. We connected and you sent me a copy of your book. Jeanne, you are a soulmate coach and you're the author of the book, Be the Soulmate You Want to Attract. And Indeed. You sent it to me because I am on my journey of attracting my soulmate. And I could not believe how much your book spoke to me and how much it just really resonated with my situation and everything I needed to hear. Because what I love about what you do, Jeanne, is that I think so many of us in this, the crazy journey to find our person, our partner, our life companion, the one, right? It's all, we get really about, okay, what are they going to look like? What are they going to be? Rather than, wait a minute, am I honoring and embodying those things that I'm looking for, that I'm asking for? Because when we get down to it, how can we ask for something that we ourselves are not able to give or don't have for ourselves, right?
That's a beautiful way to put it, because a lot of people don't really think about that. Even, people who've worked on themselves a lot. So it's not even a judgment. It's just, I think, a cultural thing. We don't really think about, well, how do we become the soulmate we want to attract? A lot of times we're thinking without realizing it, how can I find somebody to complete me, who can be strong where I'm not? And, and it gets mixed up where it really should be about how can I become the best version of myself? And that's what's going to get you the partner you always wanted.
Yeah, it's true. And that just sounds a lot more difficult than getting to pick out somebody that's your Prince Charming or Princess Perfect and, is your everything and who's going to, make you feel all these certain ways, I had somebody else ask me one time, somebody else I was working with, therapy and focusing on finding a relationship. And they asked, what is it like to date you? And I was kind of taken aback. And I thought, oh gosh, what is it like to date me? What do I bring to the table? How do I present? How do I act? And we all know that experience of when you're dating, there's nothing like it where you get this big old mirror right in your face. It's funny. Absolutely. You can be single and you think that you've resolved a lot of issues and you're doing good and all this stuff. And then you get in a relationship and you're like, what was that? Like, what is this that's coming up? That's defensive. That's this, that's that, that's insecure. That's whoa. So anyways, so that's why addressing the internal first, addressing, who am I? That's a big question that's come up for me with each relationship, has kind of jolted me, made me think, well, why did I act that way? Like, who am I? What are my values? What's important to me? Why am I acting this way if I say that I believe these things? And I think it's all about, it's our personal history and our own insecurities and our own, false core beliefs and all of that just really, really shines the most in relationships. In a good and bad way, our traits come through.
Absolutely. And it's important not to be hard on ourselves too throughout this process. And I'm not saying, by the way, I think it's just important to say, because I don't want anybody to be freaked out when I'm like, be your higher self, because I'm not expecting, when I work with people and when I coach them, I'm not trying to get them to be, living on the astral plane. They're so evolved. I'm or whatever the term is. Yeah. I mean, what I'm trying to do is get them, because of course, law of attraction is about feeling the vibration of having what you want rather than thinking your way there. And if you are not vibrating from that place of, this is what I deserve and this is my vision, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be another lesson that's coming your way. Yeah. So when I say live your highest life, best life, it's just getting very clear on who you are, flying your freak flag, which I know we'll talk about later, and being very clear what your boundaries are. A lot of people are not super clear on that. clear on what they want their life to look like in the future with this partner. Sometimes they think, I'll get the partner, then we'll figure out a life together. But if you figure out where you want to go with your life, what dreams do you want to accomplish, I just help clients to just take even baby steps in that direction, and that's enough. Because then when they call in a partner, that partner is going to be coming into being invited into that life. When that guy asked you, what's it like to date you? If you're already clear on what you want your life to look like, you can answer so clearly, and that guy can understand, or whomever you're looking for, will understand if they fit in that picture with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that what can be challenging is that what we think we want can change. And I feel like that ties in a little to another big component of your message, is that, you found love later in life. And I, am getting into my late 30s, and I'm still, on the lookout for my person. I still have yet to meet them. So, and I'm seeing there's many benefits to finding love later in life, because you get, with each relationship and with each year of life, you get more clear about what is it that I'm looking for. Because as we know, the universe is literally like a Xerox machine. You say what you want and it will make a copy of that. But sometimes it's when our intentions and our requests are not clear or not consistent that we get all these mixed results, which I've experienced a lot of. So I think I wish something that was more, encouraged and stated, is that there's actually wonderful benefits to finding a partner. I mean, whenever you find them is great, but if it happens later in life, it gives you all that more time to more thoroughly know, this is who I am and this is what I want.
Absolutely. And I had a funny story when excuse me, when I was in my late 20s, a friend of mine took me to a psychic. And already in my late 20s, I was all about my soulmate, or one of my soulmates. I believe there were multiples, but I was all about it. And the psychic called on me because it was one of those group readings. And she says, you. And I went, me? She says, you. She goes, I can't ignore you and your question, so I'm going to answer it for you. She says, you're not going to meet him till your 40s. So get over it. I was not a happy camper. But I will say, now that I'm older and wiser, it makes perfect sense, because knowing what I know now, of course, pull and attract Todd into my life, it took a lot. I was very stubborn. I had a certain way of being, and I didn't know how to receive, and I thought I did, but eventually I got our thing. I hope they figure out how to give us much more biological freedom so that we don't have that pressure, in the early 30s to mid 30s, that some women really, really want kids. They feel like, God, I have to mate with somebody now. I have to find somebody now. And that pressure pushes what you want away. It's really unfortunate. And of course there's freezing the eggs, but putting the biological part aside, if you're able to meet someone later in life, there are so many more advantages, so many more benefits. So yes, you're more clear on who you are and what you want. You've learned a lot about yourself, as you said, from previous relationships. And you're also just wiser. You're just wiser in general. You don't take things as personally as you do when you were younger. You've had a lot more life experience, and you just have had more time to figure out what your next dreams are. So that when you do attract somebody, they're much more likely to be aligned with you. A lot of the people who come to me for coaching have been married, but they married young, and they just grew apart because they got together because they were, really attracted to each other and they cared about each other, but they didn't ever talk about where they wanted to go in the future. What was their future like? Hello, hello, hello. I can't hear you for some reason. Let me just check something, see if a setting moved. All right. It's still on headphones. Let's see. Can you hear me now? I can't hear you. Let me just check and see if something changed on my settings. Yeah, maybe that's what did it. Okay, my settings are correct. Hello, hello, hello. Hold on one sec. I'm going to ask my husband.
So what's interesting is that as I have gotten more into a spiritual community and into, my spiritual awakening and all that stuff, I've met more and more women who met their spiritual partner later in life, their companion, their soulmate. And all I've heard from them is that they like how peaceful they feel within the relationship, how satisfied, which is also interesting because another little stigma and lovely thing that people will tell you is, oh, you better get married early or you're going to have to settle. But no one I've met who married later, it sounded like, oh, thank goodness I found the exact person for me, that we're just such a good fit, rather than, well, it's someone to watch TV with and make meals with. It'll do.
Yeah.
And again, it's not to insult anyone. If you get married early, that's beautiful and wonderful. Some people have a whole lifelong relationship, but I'm focusing on this because it is this sort of stigmatized group of older women who are single. And it's like, oh, that spinster is going to have to find the slim pickings. They're the leftovers, right? That's a term I hear. They're the leftovers.
Totally. And that's what freaks us out and why so many of us get into a lack mindset when we're dating and why there's so much tension around our dating. And that's what I was trying to say before about wanting kids too, because that's part of the reason why there's this stigma. Oh, you better find them or else your eggs are going to get old. And it's like, oh my God, just give women a break, please, because there's enough pressure on us just being in the world. We don't need that pressure too. And I will say from where I'm sitting, yes, I've known people who've been together, in their early 20s, and it's a great relationship. I think, though, much of the time that's not necessarily going to be our final relationship, unless we just both happen to be really actively working together and are both great communicators and both going in the same direction. But it tends to be more and more common now that people are waiting. And I do think the results are pretty amazing when you're already in a place of having that life experience to know what's important and what isn't. When we're in our 20s, I tell people all the time, please, nowadays, try to avoid getting married in your 20s, because it isn't until, you get into your 30s that you really start stepping into who you are. And I'm not trying to say that anybody who met someone in their 20s has the wrong person, but I'm just saying in general, it is better to wait till you're a little older. So I am fighting that stereotype. I don't want people to buy into that mindset. It's part of what that belief is about you better meet them early, is they think that a woman's value is her attractiveness, her, youthful skin and firmer butt and whatever, and the funny thing is, I was 300 pounds when I attracted my husband, and I was in my 40s. And I'm here to tell people all the time that it's not about if you have wrinkles because you're a little bit older. It's not because you're a little fluffier because you're older. It's really just about how you feel about yourself inside. And that energy that you project from being coming from that place. That's what's attractive. I was just dancing in a gay bar with Marcus, my co-host, Lady Portia.
Co-host for let's shout out to your podcast.
I was trying to be respectful, but it's Dating is Such a Drag podcast.
And what is it again? Dating
is Such a Drag. I created it, and I invited Lady Portia, who's an amazing drag queen and life coach, to be on the show with me. And she's like my spirit animal. She's really amazing. And she performs in Belfast. And I was in Belfast recently, and after she did her set, we were all dancing on the stage, and I had like a 30-year-old guy asking everybody if I was single. And I'm turning 55 tomorrow, and I've got a lot of extra pounds. I got the wrinkles, but I was having the time of my life, and I was radiating such happiness. He said, I can't take my eyes off of you. So I want to emphasize to anyone listening out there, please let go of any notion, if you're carrying it, that if you start to look like you have a little mileage on you, that's what it's about. And it's really, really not. Yeah. It's about your energy.
That's such a powerful truth, Jeanne. And I'm so glad you bring that up, because I think that plagues so many of us in our dating life, not only in the dating experience, but how much grief we give ourselves about, because I know for me, it's my whole life. It's been, if I was just this, if I just was more like this or like that, then everybody would have wanted me and everything would have worked out. But the truth is just what you said. It's that, people are enigmatic for different reasons, right? They attract different people. They are vibrant. They are vivacious for various reasons. And one part of it is our external physical presentation, but that's just one part. Yet we, as a society, as a world, we're very fixated on the physical, right? Mm-hmm. Material. So we kind of push everything else aside, and we're like, no, all that matters is that I'm young and that I look my best. But, I've been in situations, I'll never forget one time I had my heart just stomped on by somebody that I was seeing, and I really wanted them to want to commit and for us to, give it a shot. And they just weren't for that. They weren't interested. They didn't want to go there. And the first place my mind went was like, well, if I just looked a little more like this and that and the other thing, then they would have been on board. And later, the person they ended up with was somebody that was, didn't wear makeup and very relaxed and I thought it was going to be some bombshell that was a perfect 10 and everything I'm not. And, it really hit home to that same question with, well, that person was just themselves. They just were who they are, and they found the person for them, and they didn't have to be showy, and they didn't have to try and contort or change themselves. And it really smacked me right in the gut, because I was like, well, who would I be if I was just me? And when can I be that so I can actually attract who I'm really going to fit best with? Because again, when we try and create or present ourselves a certain way, it's like we're really kind of contorting or blocking our true light, because we think that, oh, if I present myself this way, if I micromanage it, then I'll attract the right person. But it's literally keeping the right person from us, because it's when our true light shines, just like you were saying, you on the bar at the gay bar, and you were just, because you don't care, you're married, you're happy, you're fabulous. And it was then that people were like, damn, like, look at that essence. So it is just such, we just do ourselves such a disservice by believing that who I am is not enough. So I have to try and change it and try to, create this certain persona or something that will get this person, when the reality is only when we release all that and just be our true selves, that person's going to come along.
Yeah. I mean, I am a poster child for that.
Yeah.
If somebody listening gets nothing more than that, picture it. I'll have to get out the picture before we end. I was 300 pounds. I was told by so many people, oh, you better lose weight, Jeanne. It's not going to happen. And I said, I'm belly dancing and I feel good in my body. I feel sexy. So I'm just going to go for it. It came the next day. I mean, it's
wild.
Well, but there's a big component though, that I should mention to you. A big part of this is flying your freak flag. And a lot of times when people hear that, they're like, oh God, what is that, kink?
Yeah.
And what I mean is just unleashing your most authentic self. And when I say unleashing, because a lot of people will just go, well, I'm being myself. Well, to your point or earlier, I think most of us, when we're dating, unless we're super conscious, are putting on a little bit of a mask. And especially if we're high achieving women, I see this over and over again. They're toning themselves down because they're afraid of being intimidating. They've been told they're intimidating. They've been told they're too much. And so they tone themselves down. I did that for a long time. And then I attracted men who rode my coattails. I had my ex before my husband, my ex-boyfriend, he literally would say to me, I know I'm riding your coattails. And I would get so depressed, like, that's not a partner. That's just luggage I'm carrying around.
Yeah, that's
It's
weight.
not somebody's,
Dead weight.
that's somebody not supporting and elevating me. That's
Yeah.
not really working. And so before I flew my freak flight, the reason I attracted my husband overnight is because before, when I was online, I did go through this 2-year journey after my last breakup to try to figure out, okay, what's up with me? Why am I not only attracting, but holding on to these relationships that don't serve me?
Yeah.
I was doing it. It's not like it's their fault. I was doing it. And I figured it out. I figured out where my limited beliefs were. I figured out how I wasn't loving myself. And I spent 2 years really working on that and stepping up into my own sovereignty. But when I put my dating profile out there, I was projecting confidence and happiness, but I wasn't flying my freak flag. What does that mean? Well, for me, I was afraid. I still had a lack mindset. I was still thinking, if I say I want to get married, it's going to look needy. If I say that I'm really into drag queens and drag shows, I know there's a lot of straight guys who can't handle that, because I had been through that experience, and other things. I mean, those are just 2 examples. And so what I was attracting was almost exclusively 25-year-old men. And I asked the guys, I said, I'm just curious, what's bringing you my way?
How old were you
And
at the time?
I was 44. And they were, some of them were really hot.
Well, yeah, you're attracting men 20 years younger than you?
I was. And then, the other night in Belfast, it was, 25, like years different. It was because I was projecting.
Oh, go ahead. You're projecting. You're probably about to say this, but I was going to ask, is it, because I've been doing the same recently, attracting younger men. Do you think it's when we're coming from a place of immaturity or when we're trying not being authentic? What do you think? What were you projecting? What were you going to say?
So I don't think it's because you're being immature. I think they're attracted to your maturity. I asked a bunch of them, what's bringing you my way? And it would usually be some variation of, you're really fun. You look really confident. And usually women their age are not. They're very insecure. It's not attractive to them. And again, it's another belief women carry, that they think that men want like an insecure little thing to rescue, and they don't. Not healthy guys anyway.
Yeah.
They said, you don't want to have my baby. You don't want to marry me. It's like Alison Armstrong said, and this blew my mind. She was talking about the different stages of men. And when men are in their 20s is when they're in the night phase of their lives and they need adventure. They must sow their wild oats. And that's when they break women's hearts.
Yeah.
So they are looking for older women, typically because they don't want to be settling down yet, unless they see being married and having a family as an adventure. That's a different thing. So that, that can happen. But the guys that I was attracting, they just wanted to have fun. They said also they thought because I was more experienced sexually, that was a big bonus too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was.
And you are. And you still are at 55. I love it.
I am.
By the way, let's not skip over the fact that you look absolutely fantastic
Thank you.
at 55. And also what a beautiful number that is. Double fives. That also means change. I wonder if you got some change coming your way this year, Jeanne, because fives are all about that change. Okay.
Yeah. And you know, I'm in the menopausal phase too. And the thing, I have a menopause coach friend who she was telling me that this is another thing too, for women who might be listening, who are closer to my age. Don't worry about menopause, because menopause, not only statistically, is when women report being the most happy in their lives, their 50s and 60s, but it's the Japanese call it the second spring. And it's like an initiation and further stepping into your power as a woman.
Yeah.
And you let go of so many things. And I can attest to that. And you do feel freer and you do feel more purposeful. So if anybody's older is listening, you know, don't buy into that whole thing about drying up, menopause and all that.
Yeah. And if your friend, is your friend Vanessa Nixon by any chance?
Yes.
So she was on the show a few months ago. So if anybody, you can find the episode with Vanessa Nixon about dancing your way through menopause was, I think, the title, because she's also a lovely belly dancer. Do you all belly dance together, like on Zoom, since you're both have a history of belly dance?
You know, it's funny because I'm going to have her belly dance for one of my classes, because I haven't belly danced in a long time. And she's beautiful. I mean, not only is she just physically beautiful, she's a stunner, but she's just a radiant being. And you know, but belly dancing was a way for me to feel good in my body at a time when, you know, being overweight for a female is, you know, it's like a crime, really, in the way our society treats it.
Yeah.
And in the Middle Eastern dance culture, they revere women who are a little more Rubenesque. It's celebrated, but anyway, that's what was happening with the younger guys.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for adding that. And I do think that's important to touch on, though, is that, you know, you said it's basically a crime when women are overweight. Well, anything that's unappealing physically feels like a crime, but also it feels like it's your value barometer, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I grew up, you know, being kind of labeled like the unattractive girl, the ugly girl growing up in school. That was my label. And, you know, kind of like an ugly duckling. And
how is that? You're gorgeous.
I mean, people change over time. It was when I was younger in high school, and which is a terrible time to feel unattractive, because that's all people know to really determine. I mean, we're so impulsive and we're so, you know, visual and, you know, just impatient that we want exactly what we see. If we like what we see, then we're going to like it. And so what I didn't like, and I don't know if you experienced this as, you know, a bigger woman, is that it felt like it wasn't just that they didn't like how I looked. It's like they didn't like me. And that it wasn't just, I didn't look good. It's that I wasn't good, is the messaging you get when you, as a woman, you're unattractive and you're overweight, you know, and I don't think that it's untrue for men either. I think men probably feel the same way, but I think it's even more extreme because women we're kind of supposed to look good and present well and, you know, be appealing. Right? Men can be strong, they can be burly, they can be manly, but women are supposed to be feminine, which usually entails being pleasant, being pleasing to the eyes, if you will. And I will never in my life, and I, you know, that's why I want to do this work and speak to people, forget what it felt like for people to look at me like I just didn't matter, or that either I was invisible or very offensive, and just how I showed up. It was the worst feeling ever, because it was like, it doesn't even matter who I am. Just how I look is an automatic, it pushes people away. And it was so degrading and awful. And I mean, talk about having to figure out who you are. I mean, that set me back a lot, because I was like, well, I guess I'm nothing. I guess I'm worthless because that's how people treat me because of how I look. And it's terrible. And, you know, I think it's something that's not talked about enough, because it's not considered like a disability or a disease, but it impacts people's life greatly when you're a little bit different. It's not that easy in this world.
No, it's not. And yes, it definitely does impact men. I do have some male clients. It's just that for women, it's more extreme. Like if you think about it and you look at Hollywood, for example, you can envision there are leading men who are a little chubbier and way older. And the leading lady is always thin and younger. And I mean, I'm hoping that's starting to change. I'm starting to see some signs that's starting to change. But even the women who are older, there's enormous pressure on them to look like they're 30. And that's why I'm so open about and vulnerable, really, talking about my weight, because I was told my entire life, nobody's going to want to fuck you. I hope that's okay to say.
That's okay to say.
Nobody is going to want you. I was literally told that by men. My ex told me he was ashamed of the weight I had gained in that relationship, even though he was overweight. You know, it's brutal. It is brutal. I can't say it enough. And that's why I'm so open about it, because part of my mission in life is helping women to not put up with that shit anymore and not to buy into it anymore. When I changed my mind about what my value was and my attractiveness was, everything changed. I was 300 pounds and attracting these young, very good looking, buff guys because of how I felt about myself, and I was projecting it. The reason that I wasn't attracting the right men, though, was because I wasn't 100% clear, which you had mentioned earlier. I didn't add all those little extra details that would show what would it be like to date me. I didn't fly my freak flag. When I put a picture of me with a bunch of drag queens in there, and I said, look, I want to get married, not tomorrow, but I want the ring, I want the proposal. I was very clear. Next day, not only my husband, but a bunch of men, who said, I want the same things. Why don't people say that? Thank you for painting a picture of what it would be like to date you. I really want to know more. I want to meet you. It's pretty clear, I think.
That's amazing. And I love that you shared that it literally happened overnight for you, because that doesn't happen for all of us. There's so many of us that were told what to do. You make your list and you check it twice about who you're looking for in your partner. And they tell you, oh, as long as you write it down in red and put it in a red box and do all these things and light it on fire, then they'll show up. But sometimes to me, it really is. It's like when that thing, I feel it's like your knowingness. When you actually I feel like when you did that day, you were like, I know. It's not a question anymore. It's not like a declaration. It's just a knowing. And then there he was, because that's how the universe works.
I have a chill right now. And every time I talk about that, I have a little goose, but because I remember that moment. I remember the moment of putting all that in the profile, posting it. And I literally felt like a shift in my entire body. And I came to peace, and I said, I've done everything I can do. And now I just have to wait and receive it. I have to go live my life. I really need to let this go.
Yeah. And
it was that energetic shift, that vibrational shift, I think, is what called them in so quickly. But, and others, it was, I do believe each and every one of us has multiple soulmates out there that could, come into our lives.
Yes.
So that's another thing too, is I let go of the concept of the one.
Okay. Thank you. Because that was something I wanted to hit on, is to ask you, I mean, of course I have so many questions, but what is a soulmate? It's such a big question. And I was just having this talk the other day with somebody that I'm seeing, which is, they were presenting that, well, anyone can be your soulmate as long as you work at it. And I said, I just don't feel that way. I feel like there's just certain people that you're actually more aligned to be with, that if you just pick anyone, that it's going to be, it can be really, really hard with certain people, whereas with others, it won't be. And I get what he's saying, that, if you work at something, but and then I was like, well, what do I think is a soulmate? It is a big question. So let me ask the coach, the master, the expert, how would you describe a soulmate?
Yep. No, it's a very good question. And I personally believe that from lifetime to lifetime, I do believe in reincarnation. And I do believe that we travel from lifetime to lifetime with groups of souls, that there are souls.
Our soul pod.
That's right. Our soul pod. And then we're not necessarily going to have the same dynamics to the relationships, but we're still soulmates. And to me, it means there's a contract of some kind of what we're going to teach each other, what we're going to bring out in each other, something along those lines, not like a literal contract, but there's some sort of purpose for these souls to be together. And I have met soulmates like where I recognize them instantly and tried to date them, and then it never worked out because they weren't meant to be there for a long period of time. They were meant to show me something about myself, and that was it. Right? I can remember one guy like that was clearly a soulmate. But he was here to teach me something completely different, and it wasn't from being with me. So there's that. There are people who maybe were, I have a friend, a gay man who he and I both believe we were married in another life, but he's now just a really good friend, you know. Todd.
Is that your current husband?
My husband is Todd. Yeah.
The man.
Todd, my man's. It's funny because when we were first dating, and I was doing Reiki on him, he grabbed my arm and he goes, "My guides are asking me if you're ready for me." And I said, "Do you normally talk to your guides?" Because he's a scientist, you know.
He said that?
He said that. And I said, "Do you normally talk to your guides?" He goes, "That's the first time, but they asked me." And
they were asking if you were ready for him.
Yeah, they were. And it just blew me away that he actually heard and perceived. And I said, "Bring it on." And he said, "Okay." And, you know, the rest is history. But a soulmate on top of that, if you're going to be with a soulmate longer term, then the reason I advocate for people to get really clear on who they are and what they want is because you want to attract a soulmate who's going to support and elevate your vision of what you want for your future. Todd does that for me, and I do that for him. So, for example, when we first met, he was in biotech and I was in PR. Weren't unhappy, but we were not really living our life purposes. By being together and with the kind of contrast that we had with each other, we helped each other to heal a little more through the mirroring. It was the right kind of contrast that we both, you know, over 10 years later, we're both living in Europe, our dream life. We're living on purpose. I'm doing my soulmate work. He's now a visual artist and, you know, a mentor to young artists. We've really helped each other live a more purposeful life. And in that sense, we're making the world a better place.
Yeah, I love that. And that was a message from your book that really stuck with me, is that because sometimes it's like, well, you know, does it really matter if I meet my soulmate? Like maybe I won't meet them and maybe it's just not meant to be. But when you put it that way, it was like, there's also a quote that I love that says, when two lives join together can do, I always mess up quotes, but it's something like what you can't do within one life can occur when two lives join together. Right. And so that was sort of the message. And I got that really inspired me, where it was like, hey, it's not even just about me being like, I want to find my love, my person. It's like, it's because we can become our highest vibrational, highest potential self with another who we best complement each other, where we bring out because then someone who gives you the courage and the conviction to really do the things that you're meant to do and be the person that you're meant to be, that does benefit the world, all people, everything.
Right? We remind each other sometimes when, you know, there are times you have bad days, right? So there are times where I forget, you know, and I'm not in my power, particularly that day. And he'll remind me, hey, you know, and he'll remind me who I am and what I deserve. And then I do the same for him. I remind him when he's down on himself. And something else I wanted to mention too, that I think is really, really important. And it's a big block that I come across in clients to receiving a soulmate is what they think a soulmate will feel like. So
let's hear it.
Hollywood and romantic novels teach us that when we meet a soulmate, it's going to feel like a big spark. It's going to feel like butterflies. Which in reality, that's anxiety. That's the kind of energy and connection where we're flipping our hair and we're sucking in our stomach and we're not feeling comfortable.
Yeah. So the,
And
the
that's
word that comes to mind is conditional versus unconditional. When I think of a soulmate, it's unconditional, which to your point is when you're at whatever weight you happen to be at, however you happen to look, you're still, it's not going to stop your soulmate because it's unconditional. Conditional is
correct.
when you look the right look, you do the right thing. And so someone's like, oh, who's that, you know? And but it
Right.
all depends on this like Cinderella moment of like, okay, I can't move because if I do, I might break the spell. So
Right.
and that's when you get butterflies is you're like, are they still gonna like me? Are they still gonna call? Anxiety.
And that's exactly right. I really agree with that. I think that's a very wise way to see it. The other piece to that is what's driving that love train is physical chemistry.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of resistance when I start talking about this. So I'm just going to preface that and say, I'm not saying you should marry Jabba the Hutt, but if you're finding yourself sucking in your stomach a lot and really like posing and very self-conscious all the time,
Like I always.
that's typically a sign that what's engaging is more of the primitive brain, the biological, the part of your hormones that are saying this person would be great to mate with, right?
Yeah.
And even if you're not looking for a kid consciously, there's that conditioning. That physical spark is physical chemistry.
Yeah.
The Buddhists and I believe when you meet a soulmate, not to look for that spark, because a soulmate won't feel that way. A soulmate will feel calm. And we're trained to believe if we feel calm, if we feel a friendship vibe, that means I'm settling. But
Yeah.
no,
This is too boring. This isn't exciting. This isn't, this big deal. Yet, I mean, if you're at peace and at ease, that to me is a big indicator of something.
and the sex from being at ease and being yourself and not having to suck in your stomach and not having to go on a diet and not have to look a certain way. When that person is with you, you can be completely yourself. And there's that unconditional feeling or potential there. The sex is fantastic. So you're not compromising. Think about, if you're with somebody and there's a physical, it's driven by physical chemistry primarily, then usually those kinds of connections, you try to have like a relationship or a conversation, it doesn't always really work. It doesn't tend to lead to a partner in general. But if you lead with looking for an emotional, spiritual connection and somebody who really makes you feel like you can be yourself, that relaxation, that peace, I just want people to know it doesn't mean you're not going to have exciting sex. There's just a level of intimacy and sexual vibrance that comes from being able to just be free.
Yeah. Yeah. And this reminds me of another question I was going to ask earlier, because what you're, really alluding to is that it's going to be healthy, right? It's going to feel healthy, which is going to feel different. I just like last year, I remember a group of my friends and I were all sitting together talking, and we realized none of us, we were all in our mid-30s, had never ever been in a healthy relationship. And we're like, well, shit, how are we supposed to help each other out? None of us know what a healthy relationship looks like. And it's because you also made a point earlier, Jeanne, you said, why do people stay in relationships that they know are not working, that they're not meant for? And I think that it's because when something's unhealthy, there's an aspect of addiction to it that can be very addictive. It can be very appealing. It feels good. Anybody who's struggled with addiction, as I have, knows that when you're in it, it can feel amazing in this really gross, bad way, but it still feels good when you get it. But then it feels awful when you lose it. So the whole addiction cycle, we know it's like this, it's not serving you, it's not good for you, but you keep doing it anyways. So why is it that we spend time in these relationships that we know are not for our highest good? We're not our best selves. That's what I've come to recognize is the question I ask myself is, do I feel like the best version of myself when I'm with this person? And so far it's been no, usually. So, why do you think that people will stay in those situations? Or why do you think that when they see something that's like a soulmate, they almost are averse to it because it's too healthy?
Yeah, there are different types of resistance, right? So some of us don't know how to receive love like that when it's offered to us, or don't recognize it because there's a part of us that doesn't feel worthy of it. And so the universe is going to keep throwing this lesson to us until we get it and we can receive it. There are other people who are just addicted to the drama, or think maybe because of role models they've had, they think that that's what's exciting, that's what they should have. Often it's because they're replaying a dynamic with their parent, like one of their parents, where maybe they were neglected, their parent didn't love them the way that they wanted to be loved, and they're trying to, it is kind of textbook, but I do find it, even if people who think it doesn't relate to them, it often does wind up being relating to them. In that, like, if for me, the reason I kept pursuing these types of men who are unavailable, my father was unavailable. My father was mentally ill. He was completely unavailable for himself, much less me and my siblings. And so there was a part of me unconsciously that was trying to work that out and trying to win the unavailable guy over, until I recognized that and shifted my beliefs around that and said, I can provide what I needed from my dad. I can provide that for myself. Yeah. And until I had that recognition, it wasn't until I had that recognition that I was able to shift the dynamic. Sometimes you don't have to heal everything. You just have to acknowledge your truth.
Yeah.
That wound with my dad is there's still parts of it there, but it doesn't have to be in control. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, thank you for bringing up that point, because it's such an important point, not just with relationships, but in general. Because as a therapist, this is something that you have to work with a lot on with people, is that, wounds can get better. They can, heal. All wounds heal by degrees, but there's no guarantee that any of our wounds are going to heal all the way in this lifetime. Because also, to your point, reincarnation, many lives, there are things that we carry with us from one lifetime to the next. Because as we know, there's no real such thing as death. So really, we're just a continuation from where we've come from before. So things that we're dealing with now might even be the residual from past lifetimes. But also, again, they might not heal fully, but we can know that they will eventually heal, because we are an infinite, perfect soul that will go back to oneness and perfection. So no concern there. But in this lifetime, it's important to recognize that just because you're not fully healed doesn't mean you can't live your life and experience love. And again, I appreciate you saying that, because I think those are two concepts that people feel strongly about and believe that it is a limiting factor. And I know I get stuck on that, which is, God, I'm still struggling with this. Like, am I ever going to be able to be in a healthy relationship? Because this doesn't seem to be going away. But I think that, just as you said, just as long as you're aware of it and there's communication and discussion around it, I think that's when you can still live with it. Our wounds are nothing to be ashamed of.
Right. And there's always going to be, even with a soulmate, that's the other thing. A lot of times people can be married to a soulmate and they sometimes start to question whether they are, because there's a certain type of contrast in the relationship. Mm-hmm. But even soulmate relationships have contrast. But the way I see it, a soulmate relationship will give you the right contrast where you push each other up. If both people are consciously working on it, that's a big caveat. Yeah. You move each other up on your life path and elevate each other. I wanted to show you. This is what I was looking for. If I could
bring it closer. For those of us who are just listening. Oh, when is this? Is that
this
the wedding?
Was my wedding.
Oh my gosh. Did you all get married on a boat? Is that a boat?
No, it's the Moss Beach Distillery in San Francisco.
Oh, well, I wish I could see
it's
it
a little
closer.
blurry.
It is a little blurry, but it looks beautiful. And I can just tell your essence and your aura is shining and happy. So,
and I was very fluffy, I just wanted people to know that, that it's just hard on the Zoom camera. Sorry.
Yeah. It really is remarkable that when it comes down to it, love, we're so tied to material and superficial. I can see it now. I see it now. You guys just look so happy. There's great joy in that picture.
Anyway.
No, but people just really believe that, that it's not going to happen or that love has anything to do with how you look. It just doesn't. At the end of the day, you don't fall in love with the way somebody looks. You don't.
No, and I have a lot of people who are really attached to the idea of the fantasy of having a movie star handsome or movie star gorgeous mate. And they feel like they're getting the short end of the stick if their mate happens to be average looking. And it's sad to me because at the end of the day, that's not what's going to make their lives more satisfying. It's not going to lead them to happiness. It's just not.
Yeah.
You know?
And also there's just the fact that, I always just get really stuck on, that everybody found the same things attractive. So I always assume that everyone would think that certain people were attractive and never as attractive or I would never be as attractive as that. So, but attraction is very, subjective. Everybody can be attracted to so many different things. And I think the shame is that it's our own insecurities that keep us from experiencing that. Someone can genuinely be like totally into you and just think that you rock, even if you're not whatever the typical standard beauty. But if you can't feel it yourself, it doesn't matter. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't embrace it and be like, yeah, I know I'm hot, which everybody in this whole world has the right to be able to be like, yes, this is who I am. And I want to rock it. And I want to just enjoy it. Because what's the alternative? We have two choices all the time: to reject ourselves or accept ourselves. And unfortunately, most of us, majority of people on this planet, choose to reject ourselves. And that's sort of my mission. A lot of focus with Women Awaken is kind of asking that question of why do we live this way? And why can't we live in a world where the majority of us accept ourselves? And I'm not talking about all of us being these narcissists who think we're the best. There's a huge difference between, having this grandiose view that you're perfect versus just being able to say, gosh, I am this amazing, magnificent being with my own unique beauty and light and vibrancy. And how amazing that I'm a piece of the universe embodied right now. We don't think that way. We think, oh man, I freaking lost. I lost in this round of life because I'm not this, that, or the other thing. So I might as well just, call it a day.
No, I'm so with you, sister. I have the very same mission. I want people, and I have gay men and straight men, and, I have people from different gender identification, coming to me with similar issues, but I do notice it tends to be way more common in women who identify as female. And that's part of the reason why I love drag queens and that drag queen culture so much, is that at the end of the day, the character that they portray is really a piece of their own nature, right? It's part of who they already are. It just gives them the courage to express that part. But also in that culture, there is a lot of body positivity. Somebody has a big butt or a big waist, they'll be like, look at that ass, and it's sexy. And there's one drag queen, I don't know if you've ever seen Drag Race, but there's a drag queen. Latrice Royale. You remember Latrice? Latrice is like 400 pounds.
I don't. My friend is such an avid Drag Race fan. She would know, but I don't. I'm not well versed. Okay.
She will. So Latrice is like 400 pounds, but he always dresses up in these elaborate ball gown outfits. And the first time I saw him, he comes in and he's like, fellas, drink it all in. And it was like, this dress was hugging every curve, and the curves were going not in the traditional way that's considered by society as gorgeous. It was like all over the place. But he just like drink it all in. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing for him to say. And it's very common in that culture. And yes, of course, there's also another side to the culture that isn't so healthy as they will tell you. But I really think that's a really wonderful thing. And they are starting to help people to see, acceptance of other things besides weight. Do I identify as straight or gay or something in between? Do I identify as male, female, what have you? But at the end of the day, it's about self-acceptance. And that's what I really like about that. And that's what I try to use as a role model for clients to give themselves permission to be themselves and not hold back anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a beautiful full gift, and what a beautiful, knowing to embody or to embrace is that, I mean, because really we are the only ones that keep us imprisoned in this idea that who I am is not acceptable. And I can't embrace myself. I can't accept myself because of X, Y, and Z. Because of these things, who I am will never be okay. When literally we are all free to say, oh my gosh, like sometimes I picture it almost like, it sounds like out of a movie where like, I think about like, I bet if someone could like snap their fingers and, become somebody else, they'd be like, oh my gosh, like I look so great and everything. But when we're in our own body, it's like, oh gosh, like this, we don't add up. Does that make sense? It's like the idea of like, if, we are this amazing, incredible person to be, and we just all find ways to like, where somebody else could have been like, oh my God, must be so much fun to be you because of this. But almost every person is like, nope. Cause we see our shortcomings so vividly, right? We see them the most.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It is true. And we would never, the way that we often can self-talk to ourselves, we would never talk that way to a friend.
No.
And that's part of what you and I are here to change, is to not to see yourself as, perfect, or like you said, narcissistic. It's more just being comfortable in your skin, not being so hard on yourself, and really celebrating what you do bring to the table.
Yeah.
And rejecting what society has brainwashed you to believe, which is your value is based on your appearance, your ability to have kids. There's all these things that put us in a box. And if you could just reject the box and live life on your own terms and give yourself permission to do that, you become this most radiant person, not only for soulmates, romantic type, but for more soulmates to come into your life, even on a friendship level.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, I see it as like a lighthouse. When you truly let your authentic light shine, you attract, your light is able to be seen. Where I had that visual one time when I was thinking just about this, I was like, well, I want to find this person and that person. And I thought, what if that person's out there, but I'm hiding myself so much that they can't sense me. They can't see me. Like your husband who got that message from their guides, like, how are the guides going to know where you are? How are they going to be able to be drawn to you if you're hiding your light? And to me, that's what the freak flag is. That's what your essence is. That's what your true self is when you let that light shine and be shown so that you can draw towards you. And to that point, it's the same thing when we embrace ourselves. That's why I remind myself when I still struggle, which I do way more often than I'd like, with self-acceptance and just being able to celebrate who I am. And when I get caught up in feeling, not enough, that I remember that this isn't just about me, because the same way that when two people join together, they benefit the world with their, their high selves. When we accept ourselves, we help light up the world. Because think of how different the world would be if everybody accepted themselves, because so many averse experiences occur from people who are angry and reject themselves. That's what results in jealousy and envy and rage and anger. Because when you don't like yourself, cancer occurs when cells in your body reject each other, right? And the same is when we reject ourselves, we become this sort of cancerous energy where we, we're not right with ourselves. So we're not going to be right with each other. So I know I'm kind of going on a tangent, but it's just this idea that the more that we accept ourselves, the more aligned the whole world becomes. Because when we align with ourselves and we accept ourselves, we give off that light and we give others inspiration and permission to do the same. And the more people in the world that accept themselves, this world could change overnight.
It really can, sister. And that's sometimes when I really appreciate that you said that, because a lot of times when I say make the world a better place, when soulmates come together, I know that some people go, oh, that's such a tagline, but I really mean it. I really mean it. If more soulmates could come together and do this work together, because it's always going to be work. It's never going to be 100% harmonious. It's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
The more that we can all let go of all this crap that the society puts on us and just become more authentic and figure out what each of our purpose is and not what other people tell us it is, what we should want, what we should be doing. If we could just, that's what I think soulmates help each other do, is to remember, you know, when other people get in the way of what we want and what we want to do, and they naysay us, your soulmate's there to go, no, this is what you're here to do. Go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it. Let's make the world a better place in our own way. And it doesn't necessarily mean you guys are going to do the same exact thing, but you're at least supporting each other.
Yeah.
And remember, you know, helping remind each other. And I think that's really a big part of the reason why I want soulmates to come together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you have that mission and that focus. And thank you for being a coach and for doing this, because it is important and it is needed, you know, rather than so many people telling us like how to get a guy and how to keep a guy. It's, you know, actually like how to be the best version of yourself to attract the best match for you, right? The person best suited for you, that you're most suited for each other, that you most complement each other, and that you say you start with yourself. So it's a beautiful message. And, you know, honestly, that's all I want to focus on in my lifetime, because I think that's what we need right now more than anything. Who knows how much change you and I will see in our lifetime, but the change we start to plant the seeds for now is what we'll see in future generations. And you know, we have similar visions and missions where people accept themselves more than reject themselves. I see generations from now where people can't imagine being so mean to themselves and not loving themselves fully. I see it so clearly in my heart that there exists a world where people are just totally stoked to be them. And there's so much more joy in the world. There's a huge lack of joy right now. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of darkness. And I just believe that the time for that shift is really here. And I think
amen. Everything you said.
So, okay. One thing I do want to touch on before we kind of wrap things up is, as someone who has found their soulmate, has made it, has done it, you're kind of a unicorn, because it feels, especially to those of us who aren't there yet, you're like, does it really happen? You can say, yes, it can happen. What is a difference? And I know we've kind of talked all about this, but what are a few things you can point out about Todd, right? Is the man, the myth, the legend. What was different when you met him and you were with him? Can you tell us a few things that seem markedly different than the relationships before, where you were like, okay, this feels more like a soulmate?
When I went into the date, I had talked to myself. I reminded myself I was not looking for a big romantic spark, that I was looking for, how much do I feel like I can be myself with this man? The thing was, he had a bunch of, he had a big work project. So we wound up, before we even physically met, we talked on the phone many nights of the soul on the phone, because he wasn't able, he was working and traveling. And then when we finally met, we'd already covered a lot of ground about our values and what we wanted out of life and whatnot. But then, you know, you get nervous when you're going to meet the person. And I said, just don't be disappointed if you don't feel like this big spark. Just look for, instead, how do you feel when you're with him? Does my body lean in? Do I feel like I can just really be myself, and he's going to like that? So what was interesting, when I first laid eyes on him and he smiled at me, I did not feel excitement. I didn't feel like, oh God, I want to tear his clothes off. But I noticed his energy and his kindness. And because I guess I was older and wiser, I didn't think of that as settling. I thought, gosh, that's nice. It's nice to feel that kind energy, because dating can be brutal. Then over the course of the date, there were a lot of really funny little things that we had in common, but I noticed that I wasn't sucking in my stomach. I wasn't like sitting there and thinking about how I looked. I could just talk to him. I felt like a friendship with him. And I could tell that he really, you know, he was leaning in, I was leaning in. There was just like this emotional, spiritual chemistry is the best way to describe it. It's a more peaceful feeling than physical chemistry. And that's, I guess, what and the Buddhists believe that too. Look for the person you feel yourself with. You feel calmness. I have a client who, she was with a soulmate and he passed. And, it's years later now that she's looking for someone new. And I said, what was it like when you first met him and you were with him? She said, it's calm.
Peace.
But we're taught to think that's boring.
Yeah. Absolutely. But then again, it brings me back to the addiction analogy, because you spend a long enough time in the, haggardness of addiction that when you let your addiction go and there's not that chaotic up and down and roller coaster highs and lows, that peace feels real nice. And that's, you get to the point when you've been on the roller coaster long enough that you're like, oh, I just want this. I'll take some peace and calm in my life. I'll take the drama free.
Yes. And one little funny thing I will say too, that, it feels, when I tell you this, it's going to sound like an after school special, but it really happened. So before we physically met, he said, I'm a leg man and I'm 5'2" and I'm pear shaped.
You're 5'2"? I would never have guessed. I thought you were tall. You have such a presence. I would have thought that you were like,
I'm super short.
Amazon. Oh,
thank you. And what was funny is I said to him, I wouldn't say my legs from my point of view are my best feature, but I said, I really appreciate my legs. They get me where I'm going. They dance really well. And he goes, why do you say that they're not your best feature? And I said, well, because they're, I'm 5'2", they're shorter, they're thicker. And he goes, oh God, that's hot.
I love it.
He loved my type of legs. I just automatically went to what society says, which is like a model, right? Gazelle, like giraffe legs.
Yeah. I love that so much, Jeanne. Thank you again for saying that, because people need to hear that too, that again, it doesn't matter what anybody else wants, just focus on you, because what you got, somebody else is going to freaking love it and think it's the hottest thing that ever happened. Like, I love what you just said, because we've all heard that, like, oh, that's so hot. And you're like, what? That's okay. And so it makes you think. Like, I remember one time I was I was into this guy and he didn't seem that into me. And he told me once that he was like super into this chick with like short red hair. And I was thinking about, okay, maybe if I cut my hair, maybe I can dye it red. Maybe if I could pull off that look. And then I was talking to this other guy and he was like, oh yeah, I'm really into like dark hair, like black hair. And I was like, okay. And I was like, wait a minute. Am I seriously going to jump through these hoops back and forth to try and please what and fit what other people want? And it also makes you realize, well, what if you're stuck with being a brunette? Somebody out there is going to like that brunette, and rather than jumping to the short red hair or the long dark hair, be who you are, because first of all, like, that's who you are, and like, love that. And who cares if no one else likes it? But most likely somebody's going to love exactly what you have. Even if you don't think it's what, is typically desirable, someone's going to be into it. People are into a lot of different things.
And I learned later on that there are plenty of men who do like my kind of figure, but until I felt happy with myself and I felt sexy within myself, that I didn't see any of those men until then. But we're hurt so much as women, especially, but everyone, when you don't look the way society wants you to look, it's very painful. And we carry that with us because there have been people. I remember there was a guy I went out with, really handsome guy. And he said, God, you're gorgeous. And this is when I was really close to my ideal weight at one point in my life. And he said, how much more weight are you going to lose? And if somebody asks you that on a date, don't even spend another 5 minutes with them. The person who's right for you is going to be like, God, you're, even if they don't say it to you, they're going to be thinking, they're attracted to you and your energy, and they're reacting to that. They're not reacting to, oh, she's got an extra 10 pounds on her,
Yeah. Plus, I also have noticed in my long dating history is that the men who tend to make comments like, well, you're not the best that I've seen, or, well, you're not, that's not that great. That's more about them. That's more about, it's like power thing rather than them being like, oh, I just don't. Well, first of all, why would you even bother saying that? It's not very nice.
Yeah.
But second of all, it's kind of like, well, let me be sure to make you feel a little bit not good enough so that because that creates a power dynamic, right? Which, we won't get more into this, but it brings us back to sort of, unhealthy relationships, which is be wary of because people will also tell you like, oh, I'm just being honest with you. It's just that no one else has been honest with you. Well, there's a difference between saying things to intentionally kind of take someone down a little bit and being honest. So, and I don't think that happens in a loving relationship when you say things just to kind of make a point, to kind of say
honesty without compassion is cruelty.
Ooh,
and a lot of men are taught, how you get a really hot girl, knock her down a peg and then she'll really want you.
Yeah.
And I know how you and I feel about that. And there are guys like that carrying that around and thinking that's the way to go. And you're right, it's not a loving thing. And that's not somebody to ever let into your belief system, your self-belief system. Just bless them and say, thank you for showing me who you are.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
And absolutely bless them, because you know what? Men who do that is because they've been hurt. And just like all of us who pick up poor habits and poor ways of treating others, it's usually because of our own pain or our own past suffering or hurt. Right. So, and that's also the trouble right now, why I'm glad there's people like you, and why I think this message is important, is we are at this time where dating has gotten really kind of nasty, where, men are kind of, frustrated and resentful about stuff, and women are frustrated and resentful. And it's because I think a lot of it is like the way that we date now, and there's so many options and there's so many ways to, kind of play games with people or ghost people and all this stuff, that we're all just kind of see each other in a poor light because we're not being our best selves in a lot of ways in the dating world. So it's really kind of a mess. There's a lot that we could use a shift in that area.
Agreed. And the thing it's important to remember, if you're a woman who's looking for a man, the important thing to remember, because of course now with the Me Too movement and the patriarchy and all of that, it's important to take each man as an individual and not project that stuff onto the man, because healthy, kind, good men, they want a strong woman. They really do. Yeah. They just want a woman who needs them and can be vulnerable with them. And also it's important to recognize that they're carrying around their pain too. So a lot of them who come to me, they honestly believe that women only want them for their money, or they want a bad boy. They don't want a nice guy. Nice guys never win. And I have to explain to them that a healthy woman does want a kind man. And they'll be like, well, they don't want me. And I said that what they want is, what's critical is for you to be comfortable with being a nice person, and for you to be comfortable within your own skin, because what women react to is confidence, just feeling good about yourself, not being arrogant or cocky.
Yes, absolutely.
So we all have our stories, I think is what you're trying to say. We have our stories about each other that don't serve us, I think.
Yeah. And we all have our stories about what enables you to be desirable and what enables you to have a mate, or what's going to make you, present the best. And all these stories are getting us into a lot of trouble. So I think it's time that we talk more to each other. That's why I believe in the spoken word so much. That's why I like podcasts. The more we have conversations around these things, I can't tell you how many podcasts I've listened to and thought, wow, that's a really good point. The more that we speak out into the world, we introduce ideas and concepts that people can hear and, really start to internalize, which I hope can create change, because that's how I've learned to change, and how I'm still changing is by hearing these kind of concepts where it's like, it's true. All I need to do is just be true to myself. That's it. And everything else will fall into place. And it doesn't matter if I play the game or if I try this or that, the right things will come my way. And the rest you just have to trust in. So yeah. But
I just had an aha moment because of what you just said, because I think that is true with podcasts, because we're learning to have conversations outside of the mainstream media. because the mainstream media hasn't really, in general, there are good shows, no doubt, but hasn't served us well for having healthy self-esteems. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, it's a beautiful medium, and I'm glad that it's here. And I'm glad that people like you are doing shows and I'm doing shows. And you know, your show is fantastic and your work is fantastic. Thank you so much
so
for
is
being
yours.
Thank you. Well, now it's even better because I'm having you as a guest, and now you get to go in the archives. And I'm stoked. So thank you so much, Jeanne. This has been such a beautiful conversation. It's one of my favorite topics and such an important one. And it is just so inspiring. Everybody out there needs to buy Jeanne's book. Where can they find it? Where can they find it? Because it is seriously, it's a handbook. It's a guidebook. I was telling Jeanne before the show that you gave me my book before I went on a trip, a cross-country road trip. And it was like one of 2 books I had. And so I just read it over and over and over. And it's that valuable. And then I gave it to a friend because she was looking for a soulmate. And I was like, okay, well, I've read it 10 times. But now I'm like, where is my book? I need to, because I have everything highlighted. So it's one of those where it literally is like your guidebook that you should always have with you. So where can people find your book, Jeanne?
Thank you. Thank you. That really made my day. So thank you for saying that. My book is called Be the Soulmate You Want to Attract. It's on Amazon. And also too, if somebody wants to take my free quiz, I have a free quiz, Discover Your Biggest Love Block. And it's on my website, mysoulmatecoach.com/quiz, if you're interested.
Awesome. And is that the website the best place to find you as far as working with you and finding out more about you?
Indeed. Okay. And you could book a free soulmate accelerator session if it's something you feel in your body move to do. You're curious, you can learn about it. It's no pressure, but if you're curious and you want to talk about, what you're going through and how I might help, I'm happy to do that.
Fantastic. Well, Jeanne, thank you so much for being you, for sharing your truth, for sharing your story, for the work that you do. Thank you for birthing that beautiful book, because books are tough. I always say that to my guests when they've made a book. I'm like, yay, you're amazing. So you made a creation out into the world that many of us can enjoy and benefit from. So thank you. And thank you for you and your soulmate shedding your beautiful light into the world, making it a better place.
Thank you.
All right, Jeanne, thank you so much. Much love.